Now we begin with Harvard's decision to stand by its embattled president. Just 1 week ago, Claudine Gay testified at a House hearing on anti-Semitism, where she appeared to defend students calling for Jewish genocide. Watch.
Calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
It depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign.
But even after that testimony, Harvard's governing board is defying the calls for her removal, throwing its full support behind President Gay, stating, quote, "As members of the Harvard Corporation, we today reaffirm our support for President Gay's continued leadership of Harvard University. Our extensive deliberations affirm our confidence that President Gay is the right leader to help our community heal and to address the very serious societal issues we are facing." But it appears the trouble doesn't end there for the Ivy League president, as she's now facing serious accusations of academic plagiarism. Now, this side-by-side comparison by the Harvard Crimson shows these striking similarities between Gay's 1997 doctoral dissertation and another scholarly piece from the year before. Well, Harvard's board says the matter has already been addressed, saying, quote, "With regard to the president's academic writings, the university became aware in late October of those allegations. On December 9th, the fellows reviewed the results, which revealed a few instances of, quote, inadequate citation. While the analysis found no violation of Harvard standards for research misconduct, President Gay is proactively requesting 4 corrections in 2 articles to insert citations and quotation marks that were omitted from the original publications." Now, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik is hitting back.
This is a moral failure of Harvard's leadership and higher education leadership at the highest levels. And the only change they have made to their code of conduct, where they failed to condemn calls for genocide of the Jewish people, the only update to the code of conduct is to allow a plagiarist as the president of Harvard.
All right, so we have 2 Harvard alum on the couch, so I will start with you, Chris, first. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that President Gay's testimony was a low point in American history. I really do. Because, we've always been told our whole lives, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And it was just a vanilla conference, and it really bugged me. Someone in her position has a unique responsibility to lead. And if you define leadership in one word, it's responsibility. And for her to take the responsibility to not only promote the importance of freedom of speech and protect it, but to also make sure that she's leading by example to ensure that it's done with dignity and reverence for everybody. Stand for that, Harvard, because where you are now is staring down the face of irrelevancy. And that is a huge threat to Harvard. It's a huge threat to these other universities. And I'm actually glad for that, because they should be staring down that threat. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that was we bore witness to something that was really sad.
And I'm curious, Kaylee, because while the board references extensive deliberations, it seems to me that the decision was made October 8th. In fact, probably the 7th, when, for example, a doctoral student wrote an op-ed for the Harvard Crimson calling out, decrying the university's response and support, essentially, of those 34 student organizations that supported Hamas and the lackluster response thereof to a Jewish student's attack by other students. I mean, the list goes on. So the notion that they say she's the right person to heal the campus, when initially, by the way, they said it was for academic freedom, that's why they were saving her, it seems to me there was never any deliberation at all.
Yeah, what a joke. She's not the right person. I'm sure you get these statements in your inbox, Chris. I opened my Harvard email this morning. I have a statement. Well, I read the statement piece by piece, and here's how it goes. The university's initial statement by Claudine Gay and others should have been an immediate, direct, and unequivocal condemnation. Original statement here was not the case. It was equivocal, did not call Hamas a terrorist group, did not even condemn Hamas. So it took 3 days, 72 hours, and finally, we get Harvard saying Hamas is a terrorist group. Okay, so there's number 1 in the statement. Number 2, calls for genocide are despicable. All right, Harvard. Well, your president, there she is on the screen, was asked about calls for genocide in front of Congress, and she said, let me not misquote her, It can be, depending on context. Calls for genocide don't merit context. They are wrong, they are morally wrong, and that should be a knee-jerk reaction, but it wasn't the knee-jerk reaction of your president. Finally, they say we champion open discourse, fine, and we are united in our strong belief that calls for violence against students and disruptions will not be tolerated. Tell that to Jonathan Frieden. Tell that to the Harvard law student who was in the library when 200 people ran in, and then his friend who was under the table runs to the DEI office and the doors are locked. This statement is a bunch of jargon. It's sad. I'm very proud to have gone to this university. I worked my whole life to get into it. I wanted my kids to maybe aspire to go to this university. But if you can't condemn genocide, I certainly don't want my children attending that university.
And Molly, the sort of proof is in the pudding, because after that testimony, to Kaylee's point, then the president says, let me be clear and I am sorry. Why was it so difficult for her to condemn anti-Semitism and to name something for what it was, which was indeed calls for genocide and harassment? Why did she sort of hover in the exception area rather than the reality? Because she just had to walk it back after. And we now know as well that reports are that 39 students were let go from Harvard because of their inadequate citations. So is it an additional layer of hypocrisy to keep her on after these plagiarism allegations have resurfaced?
I think you guys have both nailed a lot of great points. One of the most interesting things I felt was that this was set up to be as if these university presidents were all ready to defend free expression, and Elise Stefanik was presented as the gotcha question. It was a simple, straightforward, easy question, but perhaps because she is Harvard alum and is very familiar with the culture there, and we've all watched this unfolding from the very beginning, that she knew that they would be giving these equivocating answers and that she would have to keep trying to get to it. And then it didn't happen, it didn't happen, it didn't happen, as you mentioned. Then the apologies come. But that has been how things have gone from the very beginning with this. In this statement, you're raising a great point, where the Harvard Corporation talks about, and the university's initial statement should have been immediate. From the very beginning, when the student groups put out their statements, Harvard had a weak response, then a follow-up response, then a Thursday on-camera response from President Gay, and that was just in the beginning week. So this was an opportunity to finally get to a point of moral clarity, and we saw the same thing again with, yet again, another follow-up statement. And here we are where the board, the Harvard Corporation rather, is saying this is it. This is how it's going to go, and we're standing behind this as well. So I don't know that we're going to see anything change.
And I guess, to Molly's point, Katrina, who's surprised, right? I mean, Harvard just got, the Supreme Court ruled against it. They've been racist in their admissions for a long time, frankly. Just to speak candidly, it's not about the president. It's about the rot that has taken place throughout the campus and throughout generations for so long.
And as you all stated, the First Amendment protects free speech, but not all speech is protected by the law, right? When speech involves hatred or harassment or bullying, that is not protected by the law. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that all 50 states have laws against bullying. But I think the truth here is that the American people have lost confidence in higher education. It's actually down to 36% confidence. And I don't believe that a lot of Americans truly think that universities and colleges are not biased against political views, religion, and group affiliations, which is why I think this outrage is taking place, and why I think that the words from these university presidents, right, are just so hypocritical, because they're using free speech as a reason not to condone and discipline these anti-Semitic remarks.
Right.
So.
Right, not to condemn it. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.